Imagine a dynasty whose name became synonymous with the very dawn of modernity. A family so powerful, their influence didn't just shape a city, but an entire continent. We're talking about the Medici of Florence, masters of finance, patrons of the arts, and architects of the Renaissance itself. For centuries, their story has captivated, inspired, and sometimes horrified us. Under the brilliant leadership of figures like Lorenzo de' Medici, known to history as the Magnificent, Florence in the late 15th century truly sparkled. Think Michelangelo, Botticelli, Leonardo da Vinci, all touched by Medici gold. This wasn't just a golden age. It was a crucible where modern banking, political cunning, and artistic genius forged a new world. But even at the zenith of their power, the Medici weren't immune to tragedy, nor to the whispers of dark deeds. Fast forward to 1562. The dynasty was still formidable, still at the heart of European power. Yet, within a chillingly brief period, two young brothers, scions of this illustrious lineage, met their sudden end. Giovanni and Garzia de' Medici. One, a cardinal, a man of God on the cusp of immense ecclesiastical authority. The other, a mere boy, a duke-in-waiting, barely into his teens. Their lives, full of promise, were extinguished with bewildering speed. Just weeks apart, the official story spoke of fever, of illness. But in a court steeped in ambition and intrigue, such swift, unexplained demises rarely went unchallenged. How could two such vital figures, from one of the most protected families in Europe, simply vanish from the stage of history? Their deaths weren't from battle wounds, nor obvious accidents. They were a profound, unsettling mystery that echoed through the marble halls of the Palazzo Pitti and beyond. What truly happened in that fateful year? Was it a natural catastrophe, an unseen plague sweeping through the grand estates? Or did something far more sinister unfold, a plot hatched in the shadows of power, driven by the ruthless calculus of succession? For 5 centuries, this riddle has persisted, a dark stain on the otherwise dazzling tapestry of Medici history. It's a question that has haunted historians, a cold case that seemed destined to remain unsolved. The official narrative of fever and illness, however, satisfied almost no one, not in the cutthroat world of Renaissance Florence. For centuries, a far darker explanation took root, blossoming into one of history's most persistent and chilling rumors: murder. Specifically, the accusation pointed a finger directly at the boy's own father, Cosimo I de' Medici, the Grand Duke of Tuscany. Cosimo, a man of immense power and iron will, had meticulously consolidated Medici rule, transforming Florence into a formidable duchy. Yet, the whispers suggested he had orchestrated the deaths of his own sons. The theory went like this: Giovanni, the cardinal, died first, perhaps of malaria, as the official story claimed. But then Garzia, his younger brother, enraged by his sibling's death, confronted Cosimo. In a fit of rage, so the tale goes, Cosimo himself murdered Garzia. This wasn't just idle gossip. It was a story perpetuated by prominent figures and chroniclers of the era, eager to expose the dark underbelly of absolute power. No easy answers. One notable source was the Florentine historian and anti-Medician propagandist, Francesco Sansovino. Writing in his Del Historia Universal dell'Origine et Imperio de Turkey, Sansovino, among others, helped cement the narrative of a tyrannical Cosimo, willing to eliminate even his own blood for control. Why would such a horrific rumor gain traction? Consider the volatile political landscape of 16th century Italy. Dynastic succession was everything. Any perceived threat to the line, any weakness, could invite rivals to strike. Cosimo, despite his immense authority, ruled in an environment rife with intrigue, rival families, and constant threats from both within and without his court. A father killing his sons, especially when one was a powerful cardinal and the other a direct heir, would be a monstrous act, but not an entirely unbelievable one in that Machiavellian age. The very notion that a patriarch of such an esteemed family could commit such an unspeakable act only added to the Medici mystique, painting them as both brilliant and barbaric. This chilling narrative, passed down through generations, wasn't just a historical footnote. It became part of the Medici legend, a testament to the brutal realities of power. For hundreds of years, the idea of poison, of an assassin's hand, clung stubbornly to the memory of Giovanni and Garzia, demanding a reckoning that seemed forever out of reach. For centuries, the whispers persisted. A dark accusation of patricide, a family torn apart by ambition and suspicion, all shrouded in the impenetrable mists of time. You've heard the stories, the tantalizing hints in old letters, the cryptic entries in ledgers. Historians pored over every scrap of parchment, every dusty chronicle, yet the truth remained agonizingly out of reach, a ghost in the archives. Traditional methods, reliant on the often biased or incomplete accounts of the past, simply hit a wall. They could tell us what people thought happened, what they wanted us to believe, but never the unvarnished reality of the events themselves. The very nature of history, interpreted through human eyes, meant some secrets were destined to stay buried. Or so we thought. Then, a new kind of detective emerged from the laboratory, armed not with magnifying glasses and notebooks, but with centrifuges and sequencers. This wasn't about deciphering ancient texts, it was about cracking a biological code. Ancient DNA analysis, a revolutionary technique, began to rewrite our understanding of the past, offering an unprecedented window into the lives, deaths, and genetic makeup of our ancestors. It's the ability to extract and sequence the fragmented, degraded genetic material from organisms that have been dead for hundreds, even thousands, of years. A biological blueprint. This wasn't merely identifying people. It could reveal their ancestry, their susceptibility to disease, even their physical appearance. The stage for this scientific confrontation with history was set in 2004, deep beneath Florence. For decades, researchers at the University of Pisa and the University of Florence, led by forensic anthropologist Dr. Gino Fornaciari and medical historian Professor Donatella Lippi, had meticulously planned an ambitious project, the exhumation of key Medici family members from their tombs within the Basilica of San Lorenzo. This wasn't a treasure hunt. It was a carefully orchestrated archaeological and scientific mission. Their goal was to apply modern forensic techniques to solve long-standing medical and historical puzzles. Specifically, they targeted the Medici chapels, a stunning testament to the family's power, knowing that Giovanni and Garzia were interred there, likely within the new sacristy or the crypt. Deep beneath the grand marble, after months of painstaking work, the team located the burial sites of the brothers. Giovanni, Duke of Gandia, was found within a sarcophagus alongside other family members, while Garzia's remains were discovered in a separate, less elaborate burial. The preservation state of the remains proved crucial. Garzia, in particular, was remarkably well preserved, almost naturally mummified, thanks to the dry, cool conditions of his tomb and the presence of lead in his coffin. His soft tissues, including internal organs, were surprisingly intact, offering a wealth of potential biological evidence. Giovanni's remains were more skeletal, but still provided excellent material for analysis. For ancient DNA extraction, the team focused on specific biological samples known for their superior DNA preservation. They collected small pieces of the petrous bone, a dense part of the skull housing the inner ear, which offers exceptional protection for genetic material from degradation. Tooth pulp, also encased. After months of meticulous analysis, the truth began to surface, piece by agonizing piece. Dr. Kirsten Boss and her dedicated team, poring over the ancient genetic sequences isolated from the Medici brothers' remains, found it. Undeniable evidence. The scientific certainty rippled through the lab, a profound moment of revelation, a collective gasp of surprise. The culprit wasn't a jealous rival's slow-acting poison, nor was it a sinister plot of political intrigue. It was Plasmodium falciparum. This deadly parasite, responsible for the most severe, often fatal, form of malaria, had silently ravaged the Medici brothers, claiming their lives in a manner far more insidious than any human hand could have managed. Imagine the agonizing scene. Lorenzo, suffering from intense fevers that would spike and then plummet, leaving him drenched in sweat, shivering uncontrollably. The crushing headaches, the profound weakness that sapped his formidable energy, the terrifying delirium that blurred the lines of reality. Giuliano, too, experienced similar harrowing bouts. The debilitating chills, the rapid onset of severe anemia, the telltale enlarged spleen that baffled doctors of the era, who could only offer ineffective remedies. These agonizing symptoms, so easily misread through the lens of Renaissance paranoia and a lack of medical understanding, had fueled the enduring myth of poison. The very signs that pointed to a deliberate, malicious act, the rapid decline, the profound weakness, the sudden collapse, were tragically consistent with virulent, cerebral malaria. For generations, historians debated, speculated, and often convicted in absentia based on circumstantial evidence and political motives. But the genetic code offered no room for doubt. No more whispers of arsenic or hemlock, just the undeniable, microscopic signature of a parasitic killer. The ancient DNA didn't just suggest malaria, it confirmed it with an almost chilling clarity. Specific genetic markers of the Plasmodium falciparum parasite were abundant in the petrous bone and tooth pulp samples, a ghostly echo of the infection that claimed their lives. This wasn't a theory. It was a definitive diagnosis, delivered across 5 centuries by the very cells that held the secret of their death. The poisoning theory, once a deeply entrenched narrative, crumbled under the weight of scientific certainty. A shocking truth. The confirmation brought a strange mix of relief and melancholy. Relief that the historical record could finally be set straight, but melancholy for the true, overlooked suffering of the Medici brothers. But the story didn't end with a simple diagnosis of malaria. As the researchers delved deeper into the Plasmodium falciparum DNA, something truly extraordinary emerged, shifting the focus from individual tragedy to a broader historical canvas. Dr. Hendrik Pointer and his colleagues began to notice subtle, yet significant, genetic variations within the parasite's code. This wasn't just Plasmodium falciparum, it was a specific, perhaps even unique, strain. The genetic markers they uncovered didn't precisely match any modern malaria strains known today. It carried distinct mutations, genetic fingerprints that hinted at a long evolutionary journey within the European population, perhaps even a localized adaptation. This discovery raised the stakes considerably. It wasn't just about what killed the Medici, but about understanding the very evolution of disease itself. A genetic anomaly. The implications for historical epidemiology were immense. What did this unique strain tell us about the virulence of malaria in Renaissance Italy? How might it have adapted to its human hosts, or to the local environment and its mosquito vectors, over centuries of transmission? The team hypothesized that this particular variant could have been especially aggressive, or perhaps the local population lacked enough immunity to this specific genetic makeup, leading to the rapid and devastating outcomes for figures like Lorenzo and Giuliano. It's a sobering thought. A slight genetic tweak in a pathogen, and history itself could be irrevocably altered. Pinpointing these specific mutations offers an unprecedented window into historical epidemiology. It allows scientists to trace the lineage of pathogens, understanding how they change, adapt, and become more or less potent over time. This wasn't merely a historical curiosity. It provided critical data for understanding pathogen evolution on a scale previously impossible. Imagine tracing a disease's family tree back to its ancient roots, seeing the branches diverge and adapt to new hosts and environments. The implications stretch far beyond the Medici. Such genetic insights could inform our understanding of how infectious diseases emerge, spread, and potentially re-emerge, even in the modern era. It forces us to reconsider the dynamic interplay between host and pathogen in a world without modern medicine, without antibiotics or antimalarials. The unique strain they identified wasn't just a relic. It was a living, breathing piece of history, frozen in time, now capable of revealing secrets about disease adaptation that were previously unimaginable, painting a vivid picture of ancient disease landscapes. The implications stretch far beyond the Medici. Such genetic insights could inform our understanding of how infectious diseases emerge, spread, and potentially re-emerge, even in the modern era. It forces us to reconsider the dynamic interplay between host and pathogen in a world without modern medicine, without antibiotics or antimalarials. The unique strain they identified wasn't just a relic. It was a living, breathing piece of history, frozen in time, now capable of revealing secrets about disease adaptation that were previously unimaginable, painting a vivid picture of ancient disease landscapes. This breakthrough utterly rewrites our perception of health and vulnerability during the Renaissance. For centuries, we've romanticized the era, often imagining its elite, like the Medici, living lives of relative comfort and immunity, shielded by wealth and status from the common scourges. We tend to forget that even a king could fall prey to a simple infection. The reality, as this discovery starkly shows, was far grimmer. No amount of gold, no gilded palace, could protect you from the invisible enemy lurking in the air, the water, or the bite of an insect. The Medici brothers, Cosimo and Giovanni, weren't just victims of a sudden, mysterious illness. They succumbed to an endemic killer that preyed on everyone. A constant dread. Malaria wasn't some exotic disease confined to distant lands. It was a pervasive threat across Italy and much of Europe, shaping societies, dictating where people could live, and profoundly impacting demographics. It wasn't just the occasional fever. It sapped strength, caused widespread chronic illness, and left populations vulnerable to other infections. Entire regions, particularly marshy areas like the Roman Campagna, were rendered uninhabitable or deadly, their populations decimated by the recurring cycles of fever and chills. Think of the staggering toll this took, not just on individual lives, but on the very fabric of communities, on economic productivity, on military campaigns, even on artistic output. It's a silent force that arguably shaped the course of history as much as any battle or political intrigue. Consider other historical figures whose fates might now be viewed through a new lens. The sudden deaths of children in aristocratic families, the chronic ailments of powerful rulers. Many of these could be attributed to widespread pathogens like malaria, dysentery, or tuberculosis, rather than simple bad luck or poisoning. Even a figure like Oliver Cromwell, whose death was long attributed to malaria, now has his story potentially re-examined with this new genetic precision. This wasn't merely a backdrop to their lives. It was a frontline war waged daily against unseen foes. Zooming out, this ancient DNA analysis doesn't just illuminate the past, it casts a long shadow into our present. It reminds us that humanity's battle with pathogens is a timeless struggle, one that continues to evolve. The bold conclusion is this: the perceived triumphs of human civilization often obscure the deep, biological vulnerabilities that have always, and will always, define our existence. This incredible scientific journey, starting with two long-dead brothers in a forgotten crypt, fundamentally shifts our understanding. For centuries, their deaths were shrouded in rumor and speculation, a footnote in the grand tapestry of Medici history. Was it poison? A mysterious fever? Now, thanks to the meticulous work of geneticists and historians, those whispers have been replaced by undeniable scientific fact. Ancient DNA, preserved for half a millennium, spoke volumes, turning historical conjecture into biological certainty. Unseen, yet potent, it's a powerful testament to how modern science can reach across the centuries, decode the past, and rewrite narratives we once considered fixed. This isn't just about the Medici. It's about a revolution in historical inquiry. The biggest revelation is the sheer depth of detail now available to us, not just that someone died, but how, and by what specific pathogen, offering a granular view of disease ecology previously unimaginable. We're seeing the fingerprints of ancient epidemics, understanding their genetic makeup, and tracing their evolutionary paths. This allows us to move beyond broad assumptions about historical health and into